My name is Ava, and for the past 6 years, my life has been a beautiful lie. I am 24 years old. By profession, I am a fashion model. My face is a canvas for luxury brands, plastered on billboards from New York to Tokyo. I walk the glittering runways of Paris and Milan, my image captured for the glossy pages of high-fashion magazines. Every day, I am instructed to smile, to project an image of effortless joy and perfection. But behind the camera's lens, the truth is far more complicated. I am not always happy. More often than not, I feel a profound sense of exhaustion, a feeling of being adrift in a sea of superficiality. I yearn for something real, something more than the reflection that stares back at me. My life was not always a whirlwind of wealth and fame. I grew up in a forgotten corner of the country, in a small town where everyone knew each other's business. We had very little money. My father, a man with grease-stained hands and a gentle heart, worked long hours at a local garage. My mother cleaned the homes of wealthier families, her own dreams deferred for mine. Our meals were simple, our clothes were second-hand. I remember the sting of cold pavement through the worn soles of my only pair of shoes, and the comforting weight of a coat that had been my mother's. But we were a family, bound by love and resilience. My parents worked tirelessly, not just to put food on the table, but to fill my world with love and hope. My deepest desire was to make them proud. At 16, my life took an unexpected turn. While waiting for a train, a woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper suit approached me. She was a scout for a modeling agency. She asked if I would consider a test photo shoot. With a mix of terror and excitement, I agreed. I had never stood before a professional camera. I wore no makeup, my hair was unstyled, but they saw something in my face. They told me I had a unique combination of strength and vulnerability. That single photo shoot was the catalyst that changed everything. I moved to the city, into a cramped apartment I shared with 2 other aspiring models. Our lives were a blur of long hours, instant noodles, and endless walking to castings. Sleep was a luxury we couldn't afford, but slowly the calls started coming in. First small jobs, then bigger ones. Before I knew it, my name was becoming known. My face was on billboards overlooking busy streets. I walked on stages bathed in light and pulsating music, the sound of applause ringing in my ears. My phone buzzed incessantly. By the time I was 21, I was the face of a major luxury brand. They lavished me with free clothes, flew me first class, and housed me in palatial hotels. Strangers would stop me on the street, asking for a picture. I had an army of fans who believed I was living a perfect life. But they didn't see the whole picture. I never forgot my roots. I remembered the cold nights when the heating was broken, my mother's tired, chapped hands, and the gnawing ache of hunger. So as soon as the money started coming in, I knew I had to give back. Not for public praise, not for social media likes, but because I understood the crushing weight of hardship. Every month, a portion of my earnings went to charities that supported struggling families. I funded meal programs at a small inner-city school. I paid for books and warm coats for children I would never meet. I did it all anonymously. I wanted no cameras, no accolades. I only wanted the quiet peace that comes from doing a good deed. One day, I decided to visit a small women's shelter in the city. I dressed down in jeans and a simple sweater, my face free of makeup, my hair pulled back. I brought containers of warm food and stacks of new blankets. I helped the women unload boxes, sitting on the cold floor with them, listening to their stories. We talked about life, shared a few laughs. For those few hours, I wasn't a model. I was just Ava, a person who cared. And then it happened. A single flash of light shattered my quiet world. I turned my head to see a man with a camera near the door. Our eyes met for a second before he turned and fled. I knew what was coming. The next morning, it was everywhere. Famous model's secret charity work, an angel in disguise. The headlines praised my compassion. The pictures were on every news site, every social media feed. My followers surged. Everyone wanted to commend me for my big heart, but I didn't feel happy. I felt exposed, stripped bare. My private act of kindness had been turned into a public spectacle. I hadn't wanted thanks or praise. I had wanted to keep that part of my life sacred. That week, my manager beamed. "This is fantastic for your image. The world is seeing the real you." But he was wrong. That wasn't the real me for public consumption. It was a private part of me that didn't need a stage. I stopped visiting the shelter for a while, afraid of attracting more cameras. I felt trapped by the very fame I had once dreamed of. One afternoon, a plain envelope arrived at my apartment. Inside was a simple, handwritten card. It said, "You helped my daughter find a warm bed. Thank you." I sat at my table, holding that small piece of paper, and tears welled up in my eyes. This was all I ever wanted. Not a roaring crowd, but a quiet whisper of gratitude. That night, I reflected on my life. I still loved the artistry of fashion, but I also needed to help people. Could I have both? I decided I would. I devised a new plan. I would continue my charity work, but with even greater caution. I used pseudonyms for donations. I visited places late at night. I worked through trusted intermediaries. I built a fortress around that part of my heart. I also came to accept a difficult truth. I couldn't control everything. The world would sometimes catch a glimpse, but that couldn't change my intentions. It couldn't change who I was at my core. Fame is a blinding light that can burn, but kindness is a soft, quiet thing. It doesn't need an audience. It doesn't wear makeup or smile for a camera. It simply gives, and that is enough. Before I continue, I often wonder who is listening. Knowing that my story is being heard, that someone out there understands, gives me the strength to go on. I began to navigate two separate lives. One was a spectacle of flashing lights and loud music, populated by a crowd of faces, some genuine, some deceitful. The other life was my sanctuary, a world of quiet moments and soft voices, where I wore no makeup and shared nothing online. I preferred the second life, but I understood that I needed the first. My career provided the resources, the platform, the power to effect change. I used that power to fund a clean water project in a remote village, to buy winter jackets for hundreds of children, to support an orphaned girl's education. All of it was done with care, without a name, without a face. Only the help was real. But fame is a relentless hunter. One afternoon, a woman recognized me in a local grocery store as I discreetly gave cash to a young cashier whose mother was ill. She snapped a photo from behind a display of cereal boxes. The next day, the image was online with the headline, "Supermodel Ava Saves Local Family." I felt a familiar wave of exhaustion. Why couldn't I perform a single act of kindness without it becoming a news story? It cheapened the act, making it seem like a publicity stunt. I confided in an older woman at the shelter, a wise soul named Clara. "Why does it matter if they know?" she asked, her eyes full of warmth. "Because," I replied, "it feels like a performance, not love, just noise." She smiled gently. "But the help you gave was real. The good still happened. The light doesn't create the kindness, Ava, it only illuminates it." Her words gave me pause. Perhaps I was too afraid of being seen, too focused on the world's perception. My professional life began to shift as well. The brand I represented wanted to capitalize on my humanitarian image. They asked me to give speeches and wear t-shirts with slogans like "Give Back." I refused. My personal values were not a marketing tool. They didn't understand. Some clients stopped calling, labeling me as too serious. I didn't care. I craved peace more than I craved praise. I moved to a smaller home on the outskirts of the city, a quiet place surrounded by trees. I adopted a dog, a scruffy mutt named Leo. He didn't care if I was famous. He only cared about walks in the grass and belly rubs. In the evenings, I would sit by the window, drink tea, and think about the young girl I used to be, the one with worn-out shoes who said yes to a stranger at a train station. She had no idea how far she would go, or how hard it would be to stay true to herself. One day, a message arrived from a young, aspiring model. She asked, "Is it possible to be in this industry and still be a good person?" I wrote back, "Yes, but you will have to fight for your silence. You will have to protect your heart." I continued to help, shifting more of my efforts online through anonymous donations and trusted friends. I stopped reading articles about myself. I didn't need the validation or the criticism. My fulfillment came from the quiet thank yous, the small smile of a mother receiving groceries, the shy wave of a child in a new coat. That was my reality. That was enough. A year later, the media frenzy had subsided. A new, younger model had taken my place as the brand's primary face. I was relieved to step back. I took on fewer jobs, choosing only the ones that aligned with my values. One day, a filmmaker approached me, wanting to document my life behind the glamour. I initially refused, but she said something that resonated with me. "This film isn't about you, Ava. It's about the quiet acts of good that ripple out into the world." I agreed with one condition: no professional lighting, no makeup, no staged scenes, just reality. They filmed me walking Leo, visiting the bakery where the girl from the shelter now worked, drinking tea on a park bench. The film was a short 10-minute piece. My voiceover was minimal. "Not everything needs to be seen," I said. "But if you do see something good, I hope it helps you see the good in yourself." The film didn't go viral, but it reached the people it was meant to. I received quiet messages from people who were moved, who felt inspired to perform their own small acts of kindness. One message, from a man who said I helped him remember who he was before the world told him to be loud, touched me deeply. I started visiting the shelter again, not to solve problems, but simply to listen. One cold evening, I sat with a young mother of 2 who had lost everything. She cried quietly, telling me, "No one sees me." I took her hand and said, "I see you." In that moment, I understood that life isn't about grand gestures. It's about small, human connections. Recently, I returned to my hometown. I visited my parents, who were now older but unchanged in their love. My father looked at me over dinner and said, "You're still our girl, Ava, no matter what the world calls you." That meant more to me than any magazine cover. Now I live a simple life. I wake up early, I walk my dog, I work when I want to, and I help where I can. People still ask why I tried to hide my charity work. I tell them that not all light is kind, and not all silence is empty. Some things, like kindness, grow best in the quiet, away from the glare of the spotlight. You can live in the light and still walk with grace. You can be seen by the world and still remain true to your quietest self. My name is Ava. I am not a star or an angel. I am just a girl from a small town who got lucky and who learned that the most real parts of life are the ones that don't need an audience. And that is more than enough.